The House Foreign Affairs Committee says Kim Jong-un's desire to talk shows sanctions are starting to work. But Chairman Ed Royce also warning this, that, quote, North Korean regimes have repeatedly used talks and empty promises to extract concessions and buy time. North Korea uses this to advance its nuclear and missile programs. We've got to break this cycle. Illinois Congressman Adam Kinzinger is a Republican on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and he joins us now. Congressman, good to have you on here this morning.
Thank you.
Do you agree with what you just heard there, the House Foreign Affairs Committee saying that it's a result of these sanctions? That is why Kim wants to meet with our president.
Yeah, 1,000%. So back when all this began, and remember the tough talk from President Trump, and the left was kind of going crazy and saying he's going to start World War III. And I remember actually being on your show saying, no, this is the kind of thing you back up. The diplomatic instrument of power only works when it's backed up with a credible military option, and that's what the president and the administration has done, is put that out there. And so this has compelled the North to the table. Now, again, just as Chairman Roy said, we have to be very clear-eyed, which is they've done this maneuver many times before, where they simply try to buy time. But if there's anybody from the North Korean regime watching this show, there's one message for them I would give, which is, don't screw it up this time, because the president is willing to talk with you. But if you break off talks with no concessions and no move towards denuclearization, I fear the only option after that point is a military option.
Wow. Well, I guess that is the only other option. Congressman, when you talk to your colleagues this morning, because this happened so fast last night with the president walking into the White House press briefing room, there's a big announcement coming. That alone was unprecedented that he did that. About an hour later, this announcement came outside the White House by South Korea. Have you had a chance to talk with your colleagues about their response to this?
Yeah, I've talked to a few of them, and they're basically, I don't want to say as excited as I am, because we're going into this very sober and understanding, but we're as pleased with what's happened here as I am, because, look, the president's been very clear. I'm willing to talk under the right conditions. The right conditions are stop nuclear testing. We're going to keep our military joint exercises going. All these conditions are being met at this point. And so to see the president with Kim Jong-un, he needs to be very prepared, obviously, going into this with Kim Jong-un. But I think it's clear that the sanctions are having a biting effect on North Korea. North Korea is feeling more isolated. And it would be very wise for North Korea. It's wise for us to remember this is a very desperate regime, even if we get a nuclear deal. But it's also very wise for North Korea to realize this is like your one opportunity to really prevent a military strike. The president's very serious about the use of military. If he needs to, he prays he doesn't have to. I met with him 3 months ago, and he had mentioned that whole thing. We never want to go there, but it's an option. And so this is North Korea's opportunity to do the right thing.
Well, similar to yours, Congressman, your Republican colleague in the Senate, Lindsey Graham, had a very strong warning for the North Korean dictator as we move towards these talks. Listen. I'm sorry, this is what he said. A word of warning to North Korean President Kim Jong-un. The worst possible thing you can do is meet with President Trump in person and try to play him. If you do that, it will be the end of you and your regime. He strongly believes, and went on to say, Congressman, that he believes that there has now been a change in North Korea's thinking, that Donald Trump is president.
I fully agree. I mean, think about the last administration. I don't like to cast stones in the past. There's too much of that goes on every day. But if you look at the last administration, I rarely heard President Obama talk about North Korea. Yet when President Obama met with President Trump in the Oval Office, he said, your number one issue is North Korea. So President Trump comes out and actually takes that seriously and begins to implement tougher sanctions, say we have a military option, have some tough talk, and it's led to where we are now. But Senator Graham is absolutely right. If Kim Jong-un thinks he can play the old game like he did against Bill Clinton and past administrations, he's absolutely wrong, because if President Trump basically goes and meets with him and it gets nothing out of it, I don't see any more possibility for diplomatic action.
Where do you think this meeting should take place, Congressman?
Well, there's a lot of very interesting things. I think China, South Korea, I think would actually be kind of interesting as if it happened at the DMZ. I've been to the DMZ. There's actually one house that basically straddles the line that both sides can walk into. It'd be kind of interesting if it happened there, but it's definitely not going to be in North Korea, I'll tell you that much.
Fair to say. South Korea, probably the best bet.
Yeah, I'd say South Korea is probably the best bet, maybe China. But again, the DMZ, that whole area of the DMZ was actually built to facilitate kind of north-south conversations. So if it actually happened there, it would be really, I think, interesting and historic. Either way, this is a very historic meeting.
I think those are a lot of the details that are going to be speculated on as we move closer to this. North Korea says they want this as soon as possible. Apparently, it's going to happen by May. There's going to be a lot of chatter leading up to that. Congressman, great to get your thoughts this morning. Thanks for being here.
You bet. Thanks.